There's a quiet truth about children who grow up ignored, one that doesn't make headlines, doesn't get talked about at family dinners, and doesn't leave visible scars. But it leaves a mark deeper than most people ever notice. It's this. A child who grows up ignored often becomes an adult who struggles to believe they deserve attention at all. They walk into a room and instinctively shrink. They speak softly, not because they're timid, but because somewhere inside a voice learned long ago, no one is listening. They succeed at something, a job, a project, a dream. But instead of celebrating, they feel a strange emptiness, as if the moment was never meant for them. Why? Because invisibility became their natural state. This isn't about weakness. This isn't about lack of ambition. This is psychology, real, measurable psychology. Psychologists call it an internalized neglect schema, a mental blueprint built from silence. It forms when a child repeatedly reaches out for attention, affection, or connection and receives nothing back. No eye contact, no acknowledgement, no emotional presence. Over time, the brain wires itself to expect neglect, to anticipate dismissal, to assume that needs are a burden. A child ignored enough times eventually learns not to ask. They convince themselves that wanting love is too much, that expressing feelings is a problem, and that needing connection is somehow wrong. Have you ever seen a child tug lightly at a parent's sleeve? Not crying, not throwing a tantrum, just waiting. Waiting for a glance. Waiting for their existence to be noticed. Maybe you've seen it at a playground, or in a classroom, or maybe you've lived it. The quiet child, the polite child, the "I'm fine" child. On the surface, nothing dramatic seems to be happening, but inside that child's mind, something profound is taking shape. A fracture in their sense of self. Because for a child, being ignored is not an inconvenience, it is existential. And here's the part most adults miss. Childhood neglect doesn't always look like abuse. Sometimes it looks like this. A parent always too busy. A caregiver buried in work. A guardian lost in their own stress or depression. A home full of noise but empty of presence. A birthday forgotten. A question unanswered. A story interrupted and dismissed. Neglect is often unintentional. But to a child, the impact feels the same, and that impact lasts decades. The psychology behind the pain. Children need three things to develop well: safety, stimulation, connection. Connection, being seen, heard, valued, is the one that builds identity. John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, found that consistent acknowledgement from caregivers forms the blueprint for every future relationship. So what happens when that acknowledgement is missing? The child forms a dangerous belief. Maybe I don't deserve love. Maybe I'm not important. Maybe my emotions don't matter. Neuroscience shows that repeated emotional neglect activates the stress response. Cortisol rises, the nervous system becomes wired for rejection. The brain begins to anticipate silence. This is why ignored children grow into adults who apologize too quickly, fear being a burden, stay quiet when they're hurting, downplay their accomplishments, feel invisible even in a crowd, struggle to ask for help, expect abandonment, accept less than they deserve. These traits aren't personality quirks, they're survival strategies. And yet, from the outside, they just look like shy, or humble, or independent. But that independence, often it's exhaustion disguised as strength. That quietness, often it's self-protection disguised as calm. That selflessness, often is fear disguised as kindness. The invisible scars. When a child is yelled at, the harm is obvious. But when a child is ignored, the harm becomes invisible, even to the child. They stop asking questions because they expect no answer. They stop showing excitement because no one responds. They stop expressing sadness because no one comforts them. Eventually, they disappear. Not physically, emotionally. Psychologists call this emotional neglect, and its scars reveal themselves later. Low self-esteem, difficulty trusting, fear of emotional closeness, overworking to prove worth, people-pleasing, perfectionism, chronic loneliness, a constant feeling of being not enough. A 2019 study in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry found that emotional neglect predicts chronic loneliness in adulthood, even when the adult has a full social circle. Meaning, you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone if your brain was trained to feel invisible. And here's the tragic irony. Ignored children often grow into adults who ignore themselves. Their accomplishments feel undeserved. Their needs feel inconvenient. Their emotions feel excessive. They become experts at meeting everyone else's needs, but amateurs at acknowledging their own. How it shows up in adulthood. Let's go deeper. Friendships. They become the listener, the supporter, the reliable one. But they rarely open up. Inside, they quietly wonder, why doesn't anyone ask how I'm doing? But they taught people long ago that they didn't need anything. Relationships. They may cling to affection or avoid it entirely. They may sabotage closeness or chase it desperately. Both come from the same wound, the expectation that their needs won't be met. Work and achievement. Some ignored children become high achievers. Why? Because they're still chasing the acknowledgement they never received. Every achievement is a plea. Do you see me now? But when praise finally comes, they can't absorb it. Their brain never learned how. Identity. This is the deepest wound. When a child is ignored, their emotions aren't mirrored back to them. So they never fully form a stable sense of self. As adults, they may second-guess everything, seek constant reassurance, feel emotionally blurry, struggle with self-worth, depend on others to tell them who they are. Identity grows in reflection. They were never reflected. But there is another side to this story. Ignored children often become the most empathetic adults. Why? Because they know what it feels like to be unseen. They developed heightened emotional sensitivity, a survival skill that becomes a superpower. They learn to read tones, faces, silences, energy shifts in a room. They became emotionally intelligent in ways others never had to be. But that gift comes with a cost. They tune into everyone except themselves. Breaking the cycle. And here's the part many people underestimate. Healing is absolutely possible. The brain is neuroplastic. It rewires. Every healthy relationship, every moment of being heard, every boundary respected becomes a new data point, a new neural pathway. Healing doesn't look like a dramatic breakthrough. It's subtle. It's slow. It's deeply personal. Healing looks like saying, I need help. Telling a friend, I'm not okay. Celebrating your own accomplishments. Allowing yourself to take up space. Feeling your emotions rather than hiding them. Setting boundaries without apologizing. Speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. These tiny acts are revolutions.
Each one rewrites a piece of the old narrative, I don't matter, and replaces it with I do.